Hello everyone and welcome to the WhiteGoblinGames living room. Today is actually a very sad day because again the king has died in our kingdom and now we don't have a leader. But we as players try to convince the factions in the kingdom that we are the right leader. And with this expansion you can change the factions that are already there. There are also heroes with special abilities, so let's not hesitate and see how to play Claim Reinforcements Mercenaries. If you want to play the expansion Claim Mercenaries, then you will need the core games Claim or Claim 2. And if you don't know how to play them, then you can look up the explanation video on our YouTube channel. For this explanation, I will use the core game Claim together with the expansion. Keep in mind that you can also use Claim 2. These are the 5 basic factions from Claim. If you want to use a new faction from an expansion, you can, but you always have to replace one of the new factions with one of the old factions, because you always play Claim with 5 factions. With Claim Mercenaries you get 3 different factions, and you also get 18 new hero cards, which you need to shuffle at the beginning of the game. When you're done shuffling the deck, grab the 5 top cards from that deck and place them face down on the table. You can place the rest of the cards back into the box. Alright, let's choose different factions to play with. Like I said, we can only play with 5 different factions at a time. There are a couple of rules when it comes to selecting and switching out factions. In Claim and Claim 2, there are always 2 factions who really dislike each other. In Claim, these are the Knights and the Goblins, and in Claim 2, there are Gnomes and Giants. The same is true with Claim Mercenaries. Here we have the Elves and the Orcs. So in this case, if we want to play with the Elves and the Orcs, we will replace them with the Knights and the Goblins. Last but not least, we have the Cyclops. They have a pile of 10 cards, and they can only be replaced by other factions that have 10 cards. Right now we have 3 factions that also have 10 cards in their pile. The Dwarves, the Undead and the Doppelgangers. Let's replace the Dwarves with the Cyclops. They kinda have the same color. Now our faction selection is complete. Place these 5 factions in one big pile and shuffle them. Now we have a deck full of shuffled factions and we have the top 5 cards of the shuffled hero deck. We're gonna put the heroes on top of the faction deck, so before we do that we need to remove 5 cards from the top of the faction deck. When you have removed the 5 top cards of the faction deck, you can put the hero cards on top of the deck and shuffle them again, because we love shuffling. Now, in addition to your normal factions, you have a few hero cards in the deck. They will be played and used as normal cards, but each has their own unique ability. When played, the following rules will take effect. If the hero is the first card played, then the opponent may follow with any faction. There's also no lead faction for that hand. The values and any special abilities will determine the winner. If the hero is the second card played, it is considered to be one of another faction, so the opponent's lead card will still have an advantage. When heroes are collected in phase 2, they do not count as any specific faction and do not count towards endgame scoring. The game overview in this expansion is the same as the base games Claim and Claim 2. First you have 2 phases, you try to win as much cards as you can, and whoever has at least 3 of the 5 factions won wins the game. But I would like to explain the different new factions in this expansion, and of course the hero cards and their special abilities. The Cyclops are a strange faction. At the end of the game, the player with the least amount of Cyclops wins the favor of the faction. But you must have at least 1 Cyclops to win. If there is a tie for the number, the player with the lowest valued Cyclops is the winner. The pure Elves and pure Orcs don't have a special ability. It's very sad but true. But there are also Elves and Orcs which have both sides on their card. These are Elves and Orc cards. They are special cards because they have dual suited cards. In phase 1 or 2, when you play a dual suited card, you must announce whether it's played as an Elf or an Orc. It may be played as either, but you must choose. In phase 2, if this card is won, it stays the suit that it was declared to be when played. You can orient the card to show what suit it is. Then there are the hero cards. There are 18 of them and each one of them has a special ability. I will quickly explain to you each and every special ability. The Singing Bard says, on the next hand, you play the lead card. The Centaur Archer says, if played to follow another card, it beats any 5 or 6. The Buglord says, if you play this card in phase 2, add 1 to it for each faction card that you've acquired. The Jester says, if played second, this card switches places with the card your opponent played. The hand resolves as if they played this card and you played the other card. The Siren says, if you lead a hand with this card and lose, then you take a card from your opponent's score pile. The Witch says, if this card is the lead card, it can only be beaten by even numbers greater than 5. The Minotaur says, if this is the last card you play in phase 1 or 2, then you automatically win that hand. The Stone Golem says, if following a card that is valued between 1 and 4, the Stone Golem crushes it and the other card is discarded. The Golem wins the hand. The Necromancer says, you may swap this card from your hand with a card that is about to be discarded in phase 1. The Lifestealer says, if played to follow another faction, then this card takes on all the abilities of that faction as if it was that faction. It does not count as any other faction during scoring. The Gargoyle. If you collect this card in phase 2, you count it as 2 of any other faction card. The Werewolf. When you play this card, you may change its value to a 5 to have it count as another faction, but it does not get the faction abilities. The Dinosaur says, in phase 2, if this card is defeated, then you can add it back into your hand. The Vampire Queen says, the other cards played against this one have all of their special powers removed. The Triad says, if played in phase 2, this card may act as a faction that you have collected at least 2 cards of. The Kraken says, if you win a hand with this hero in phase 2, take a card from your opponent's hand, then give them one of your choice from your hand in return. Death says, if played in phase 2, players do not collect the cards into their score piles. The cards are discarded. The player who would have won leads the next trick. And then there's the Undefeated Warrior. He does not have an effect, but has a really high value. Claim Mercenaries is part of a series called Claim Reinforcements, and if you want to see more of these expansions, you can go to our website www.WhiteGoblinGames.nl. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a like or a comment, and we will make more of these videos for you. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial video.